The anesthesiologist's voice was the last thing I heard before everything went black. Count backwards from 10, Ms. Chen. 10, 8. I woke up 6 hours later in the recovery room, groggy and disoriented from the emergency gallbladder surgery. The first thing I reached for was my phone, checking for messages from my family. Surely someone would be worried about how the surgery went. There was one text from my sister Rebecca, sent 3 hours ago while I was still under anesthesia. Thanks for the down payment on my new house. House money bag, don't worry about the apartment. I handled everything while you were busy. You'll thank me later when you're not tied down to that tiny place. I stared at the message, my pain medication making it hard to process what I was reading. What did she mean? Handled everything? My fingers fumbled as I scrolled through my missed calls and messages. There were 17 missed calls from my realtor, Janet Morrison, all within the past 4 hours. Her voicemails grew increasingly frantic. Madison, please call me immediately. There's been some confusion about your apartment sale. Madison, your sister showed up with power of attorney documents claiming medical emergency authority. She's demanding we proceed with the Henderson offer today. Madison, I'm required to process this, but something feels wrong. Please call me as soon as possible. Madison, the sale went through. $340,000 to the Henderson family. Your sister collected the check. I'm so sorry, I tried to delay but the documents looked legitimate. My heart started racing, which immediately triggered the monitors beside my bed. A nurse rushed in. Miss Chen, you need to stay calm. Your blood pressure is spiking. My apartment, I managed to whisper. My sister. She sold my apartment while I was in surgery. The nurse's expression softened with sympathy. Oh honey, family can be complicated during medical crises. But right now you need to focus on recovery. These issues can be sorted out later. But I knew they couldn't be sorted out later. Rebecca had somehow forged power of attorney documents and sold my apartment without my consent while I was unconscious. The $340,000 from the sale was apparently funding her new house purchase. I texted her back with shaking fingers, "Congratulations on your new house." Her response came immediately, "I knew you'd understand. That little apartment was holding you back anyway. Now you can find something better when you're feeling up to it. Don't worry about paying me back. Consider it a gift for being such a good sister." Face blowing a kiss. The audacity was breathtaking. She'd stolen my home and my money, then framed it as doing me a favor. I closed my eyes and tried to think through the pain medication fog. Rebecca had no idea what she'd just done. She thought she'd stolen $340,000 from her unsuccessful little sister who worked in finance and lived modestly. What she didn't know was that I didn't just work in finance. I owned one of the largest private lending companies in the state. Chin Capital Holdings had been my baby for the past 8 years. Starting with a small inheritance from our grandmother, I'd built it into a $1.2 billion private lending empire, specializing in commercial real estate, luxury home mortgages and business acquisition financing. We held mortgages on over 3,000 properties across 3 states. The irony was delicious, if it weren't so infuriating. Rebecca had been bragging for months about the perfect house she'd found in Meadowbrook Heights, a $1.8 million mansion that she planned to purchase with a mortgage from some company called Pacific Premier Lending. Pacific Premier Lending was one of my subsidiary companies. I opened my laptop, ignoring the nurse's protests about rest, and logged into our system. Sure enough, there was Rebecca's application. Rebecca Chen Martinez applying for a $1.44 million mortgage on 847 Willowbrook Drive in Meadowbrook Heights. Credit score, 720. Down payment, $360,000, apparently rounded up from her theft of my apartment money. The application was scheduled for final approval tomorrow morning. I made one phone call to my COO, Michael Torres. "Madison, how did the surgery go? We were all worried when you didn't make this afternoon's board meeting." "The surgery went fine, but we have a family situation. I need you to personally review a mortgage application first thing tomorrow morning." "Of course. What's the file number?" I gave him Rebecca's application number. "Decline it. Full stop. No explanation beyond insufficient qualifications." "Is this a risk management issue?" "It's a personal management issue. The applicant committed fraud to obtain their down payment. I'll fill you in on the details when I'm back in the office." "Understood. The application will be declined at 9 a.m. sharp." After hanging up, I lay back in the hospital bed, staring at the ceiling. The pain medication was making me drowsy, but my mind was crystal clear about what was going to happen next. Rebecca thought she was so clever, stealing from her naive little sister to fund her dream house. She had no idea that her dream house's financing depended entirely on the approval of the very sister she'd just robbed. The next morning, I was discharged from the hospital with strict instructions to rest and avoid stress. I went straight to my office, where my assistant Elena had prepared a complete briefing on the Rebecca situation. "I did some research on your sister's mortgage application," Elena said, handing me a thick folder. "The property she's trying to buy is interesting." "How so?" "It's been on the market for 14 months. The owners are desperate to sell because they're facing foreclosure on their own mortgage, which, coincidentally, is also held by Pacific Premier Lending." I smiled for the first time since waking up in the hospital. So if Rebecca's application is declined, the sellers might lose their house anyway? Very likely. They've missed 3 payments and were counting on this sale to avoid foreclosure. And the property would revert to us? Eventually, yes. It's a beautiful house, 4,200 square feet, swimming pool, 3-car garage. Prime location in Meadowbrook Heights. At exactly 9 a.m. my phone rang. Rebecca's number. "Madison? Madison, something terrible has happened." I put the phone on speaker so Elena could hear. "What's wrong, Becca?" "My mortgage application was declined. They said insufficient qualifications, but that's impossible. My credit is perfect, I have a huge down payment, I make good money at the marketing firm." "Oh no, that's terrible. Which lender was it?" "Pacific Premier Lending." "I don't understand, they pre-approved me months ago. The seller's agent says they've never seen anything like this. One day everything's perfect. The next day it's a complete rejection with no explanation." "Have you tried calling them for more details?" "I've called 17 times. They just keep saying the decision is final and they can't provide additional information due to company policy." I made sympathetic noises while Elena pulled up Rebecca's complete financial profile. Her salary at the marketing firm was $78,000 per year, decent, but nowhere near enough to qualify for a $1.44 million mortgage, even with the stolen down payment. "Becca, can I ask you something? How did you come up with such a large down payment?" Her voice got defensive. "I told you I sold your apartment. You were in surgery and couldn't make decisions, so I used the medical power of attorney to handle it for you." "Wait, you had medical power of attorney for me?" "Well, not exactly. But you were unconscious and the realtor said there was a deadline, so I may have improvised the paperwork." Elena's eyes widened. "Forging legal documents was a felony." "Becca, that's fraud. You can't forge power of attorney documents." "It's not fraud. I was helping you. That tiny apartment was a waste of your money anyway. Once I get this mortgage situation sorted out, you can come live with me in the new house until you find something better." The entitlement was staggering. She'd committed multiple felonies to steal my home and my money, and she genuinely believed she was doing me a favor. "Have you considered other lenders?" "I've tried 4 other companies. They all say the same thing: my debt-to-income ratio is too high for the loan amount I'm requesting. But that's impossible. I calculated everything perfectly." Of course she had. Rebecca had always been terrible with money and even worse at understanding complex financial calculations. She probably used some online calculator without factoring in property taxes, insurance, and HOA fees. "What about a smaller house?" "Madison, this isn't just any house. This is the house. The one I showed you pictures of at Christmas. The one with the perfect kitchen and the swimming pool and the view of the lake. I've already told everyone at work that I'm buying it. I've planned the housewarming party. I can't back out now." "When is your closing deadline?" "Friday. If I don't secure financing by Friday, the sellers can accept other offers." Today was Tuesday. She had 3 days to find $1.44 million in mortgage financing with a credit profile that no legitimate lender would touch. "Becca, I hate to say this, but maybe you need to consider that this house is out of your price range." "No." Her voice was sharp. "I deserve this house, Madison. I've worked hard, I've saved money, I've made sacrifices. I'm not going to let some bureaucratic nonsense stop me from getting what I've earned." What she'd earned? Using money she'd stolen from me. "Have you talked to Mom and Dad about this?" "They don't understand real estate. They think I should buy some tiny starter home in the suburbs. They don't realize that location is everything, that this house is an investment in my future. After hanging up, I sat in my office thinking about the situation. Rebecca was facing a reality that thousands of people dealt with every day, wanting something they couldn't afford and refusing to accept the limitations of their financial situation. The difference was that most people didn't commit fraud to bridge the gap between their dreams and their means. Elena knocked on my door. "Madison, your sister is here to see you." "She's here?" "At the office. She told the front desk she's your sister and it's a family emergency." I sighed. "Send her up." 5 minutes later, Rebecca burst into my office. At 32, she was 3 years older than me, but she'd always treated me like the irresponsible younger sister who needed her guidance. "Madison, I need your help. This mortgage situation is insane and I think they're discriminating against me." "Discriminating how?" "I don't know. Maybe because I'm a woman or because I'm not married or because I work in marketing instead of finance. Something is wrong with this whole process." She sat down across from my desk, looking around my corner office for the first time. I could see her taking in the city view, the expensive furniture, the awards on the walls. "This is a nice office. Your company must be doing well." "We do okay." "Good for you. Anyway, I need you to co-sign my mortgage application. With both our incomes combined, we'll easily qualify for the loan amount." I stared at her. "You want me to co-sign a $1.44 million mortgage for a house that you're buying with money you stole from me?" Her face flushed. "I didn't steal anything. I sold your apartment to help you get out of a bad investment. That place was tiny and in a declining neighborhood. I did you a favor by forging legal documents and selling my property without my consent while I was unconscious in surgery. The paperwork was creative, but the intent was good. Look, we can split the house payment. You can live there too, at least until you get back on your feet." The generosity of allowing me to pay half the mortgage on a house she bought with my own stolen money was remarkable. "Becca, I can't co-sign your mortgage." "Why not? Are you worried about your credit?" "Because I promise I'll make all the payments on time." "It's not about my credit." "Then what?" "Madison, this is important to me. This house represents everything I've been working toward. I can't let it slip away over some technicality." I looked at my sister, really looked at her, and saw someone who had convinced herself that her wants were needs, that her desires justified any means of achieving them, and that anyone who didn't support her dreams was being selfish. "Becca, what do you know about my job? You work in finance, right? Some kind of analyst or accountant position. What's the name of my company?" She looked around the office again, noticing for the first time that my name was on the door in gold lettering. "Capital Holdings." "I don't work for Chin Capital Holdings, Rebecca. I own it." "You own a capital company?" "Like a small investment firm. We're one of the largest private lenders in the state. We hold over $1 billion in assets and manage mortgages on more than 3,000 properties." She laughed, a confused sound. "Madison, that's impossible. You live in that tiny apartment and drive a Honda Civic." "I lived in a modest apartment because I prefer to invest my money rather than spend it on status symbols. I drive a reliable car because I don't define my worth by material possessions." "But if you own $1 billion company, why haven't you ever mentioned it?" I thought about all the family dinners where Rebecca had dominated conversations with stories about her marketing campaigns, her workplace drama, her dating life. I thought about how she'd introduced me to her friends as my little sister who's still figuring out her career path. When would I have mentioned it, Becca? Between your stories about landing new clients and your complaints about your boss. She was quiet for a moment, processing this information. "So when I applied for my mortgage through Pacific Premier Lending, that's one of my subsidiary companies." Her face went white. "You declined my mortgage application?" "I did. But why? If you own the company, can't you just approve it?" "I could approve it. But I won't approve a mortgage application that was funded with stolen money. I didn't steal anything." I pulled out my phone and showed her the text message she'd sent while I was in surgery. "Thanks for the down payment on my new house." That was a joke. I was being playful. "You forged power of attorney documents, sold my apartment without my consent while I was unconscious, and kept the $340,000 to fund your house purchase. In legal terms, that's fraud, theft, and forgery. Any one of those is a felony. Rebecca was shaking her head frantically. No, no, no. It wasn't like that. I was helping you. The apartment was a bad investment and you were in the hospital and there was a deadline. There was no deadline, Becca. I checked with my realtor. The Henderson offer was good for 30 days. You could have waited for me to recover from surgery. But what if they changed their minds? Then we would have found another buyer or I would have decided not to sell. It was my decision to make, not yours. She was crying now, mascara running down her cheeks. Madison, I need this house. I've already put down deposits on furniture. I've scheduled the movers. I've told everyone at work. I can't back out now. You're going to have to. Can't you make an exception? Can't you approve the mortgage as a family favor? I looked at my sister, this person I'd grown up with, shared holidays with, defended against playground bullies and high school mean girls. She'd just committed multiple felonies against me and was now asking me to reward her criminal behavior with a $1.44 million loan. Becca, if I approved your mortgage application, I'd be enabling your fraud. I'd be telling you that stealing from family is acceptable if you want something badly enough. It wasn't stealing. It was an emergency financial decision made on your behalf. By someone with no legal authority to make that decision. Elena knocked on the door. Madison, there's a call for you on line 3. It's about the Meadowbrook Heights property. I picked up the phone. This is Madison Chin. Miss Chin, this is David Hartwell from Premier Real Estate. I represent the sellers of 847 Willowbrook Drive. I understand there's been an issue with the buyer's financing. That's correct. The mortgage application was declined. The sellers are wondering if there might be room for negotiation. They're facing their own financial pressures and really need this sale to go through. I looked at Rebecca, who was listening to every word with desperate hope in her eyes. Mr. Hartwell, what's the current mortgage status on the property? The sellers are 3 months behind on their mortgage payments. They're facing foreclosure proceedings if they can't sell within the next 2 weeks. And who holds their mortgage? Pacific Premier Lending, I believe. I see. Mr. Hartwell, let me call you back within the hour with a proposal. After hanging up, I turned back to Rebecca. The people selling your dream house are about to lose it to foreclosure. What does that mean? It means they can't make their mortgage payments. If they don't sell the house immediately, the bank takes it back. Which bank? My bank. Pacific Premier Lending holds their mortgage too. Rebecca's eyes widened as she began to understand the implications. So if they can't sell it to me, you get the house anyway? Eventually, through the foreclosure process, yes. And then what would you do with it? I smiled. I'd probably renovate it and sell it for fair market value. Maybe keep it as a rental property. It's a beautiful house in a prime location. Madison. Rebecca's voice was small. I think I made a terrible mistake. Yes, you did. Can I fix it? Can I give you back the money from the apartment and start over? The money is gone, Becca. You used it as a down payment on a house you can't afford. Even if you could get it back, you'd still need to qualify for a $1.44 million mortgage on a $78,000 salary. What if I found a smaller house? Something more reasonable? That would be a good idea. But it would have to be with a different lender. I can't approve any mortgage applications from someone who committed fraud against me personally. She sat in silence for several minutes, the reality of her situation finally sinking in. I'm going to lose everything, aren't I? You're going to lose the house you were trying to buy with stolen money, yes. But you still have your job, your apartment, your actual savings. You still have your life, just not the upgraded version you were trying to steal. Will you press charges against me? I considered this question carefully. Rebecca was family, but she'd also committed serious crimes against me. On the other hand, she was facing natural consequences that might be more effective than legal ones. That depends on what you do next. What do you mean? If you acknowledge what you did wrong, make a genuine effort to understand why it was wrong, and commit to never doing anything like this again, I won't involve law enforcement. But if you continue to justify your actions or try to manipulate the situation, I'll file charges for fraud, theft, and forgery. I think I'm starting to understand what I did. What did you do, Becca? She took a shaky breath. I stole your apartment. I forged legal documents. I took your money to buy something I couldn't afford. And then I tried to manipulate you into helping me get away with it. Why did you do those things? Because I wanted that house so badly that I convinced myself I deserved it. And I thought you were unsuccessful enough that you wouldn't be able to stop me. It was brutal but honest. What are you going to do now? I don't know. Look for a smaller house, I guess. Try to figure out how to afford something reasonable. Maybe get a second job. I called David Hartwell back. Mr. Hartwell, this is Madison Chin. I have a proposal for your clients. I'm listening. Chin Capital Holdings will purchase the property directly for $1.6 million cash, closing within 7 days. That's $200,000 above their asking price. Rebecca's jaw dropped. Miss Chin, that's incredibly generous. They'll definitely accept that offer. Excellent. Have them contact my legal team to arrange the paperwork. After hanging up, Rebecca stared at me. You're buying the house? I'm buying the house. For $200,000 more than they were asking? It's a good investment property in an excellent location. Are you going to live there? I haven't decided yet. Maybe I'll keep it as a rental property. Maybe I'll renovate and flip it. Maybe I'll give it to someone who deserves it as a gift. The last comment hung in the air between us. Madison, I know I don't deserve anything from you after what I did. You're right. You don't. But if there was ever a way for me to earn back your trust, to prove that I've learned from this. I looked at my sister, seeing perhaps for the first time the person she could become if she learned to align her dreams with her reality. Becca, here's what I'm willing to offer you. You can rent the house from me for exactly what you can afford, 30% of your gross income, which is about $1,950 per month. You'd let me rent my dream house for $1,950 a month? With conditions. What conditions? First, you pay back every penny of the $340,000 you stole from me. We'll set up a payment plan that works with your budget, but every penny gets repaid with interest. She nodded eagerly. Second, you take a financial literacy course and prove that you understand the difference between what you want and what you can afford. Okay. Third, you volunteer 20 hours a month with a nonprofit that helps people avoid foreclosure and bankruptcy. You need to understand the consequences of financial irresponsibility. I can do that. And fourth, you publicly acknowledge what you did and apologize to everyone you bragged to about buying the house with stolen money. Rebecca winced. That's going to be humiliating. It should be. Humiliation is a natural consequence of doing humiliating things. How long would this arrangement last? Until you've repaid every penny you stole, completed the financial education program, logged 240 hours of volunteer work, and demonstrated consistent responsibility for 2 full years. And then we'll discuss your options. Maybe you'll be in a position to actually purchase the house legitimately. Maybe you'll have learned to be happy with something more reasonable. Maybe you'll have discovered that your worth isn't determined by your address. Rebecca was crying again, but these tears looked different. Less desperate, more grateful. Madison, I don't deserve this kindness. No, you don't. But sometimes family means giving people chances to become better than they've been. I'm going to make this right. I promise. See, actions matter more than promises, Becca. 6 months later, Rebecca had made her first 6 rental payments on time, completed her financial literacy course, and logged 120 volunteer hours at the foreclosure prevention nonprofit. She'd also publicly apologized on social media for her fraud, which had been mortifying but necessary. The volunteer work had been particularly eye-opening for her. Seeing families lose their homes because of financial mistakes had given her perspective on the difference between wants and needs. Madison, she said during one of our monthly check-in dinners, I need to tell you something. What's that? I don't want to buy the house anymore. I looked up from my menu surprised. Why not? Because I've realized it was never about the house. It was about proving something to people whose opinions don't actually matter. The house is beautiful and I'm grateful to live there, but I don't need to own it to be happy. So what do you want to do when your rental agreement is complete? I want to buy a smaller house that I can actually afford. Something reasonable in a good neighborhood that fits my actual life instead of my fantasy life. And what about the money you stole from me? I want to keep paying it back even after I move out. What I did was wrong and making it right shouldn't depend on where I'm living. I smiled. I'm proud of you, Becca. Really. You've learned the difference between earning something and taking something. That's not an easy lesson. I had a good teacher. You had consequences that taught you. I just made sure they were fair consequences instead of destructive ones. As we finished dinner, I reflected on how the situation had turned out. Rebecca was becoming a more responsible person, our relationship was stronger than it had been in years, and I'd acquired a beautiful property that was already appreciating in value. Sometimes the best revenge wasn't revenge at all. Sometimes it was helping someone become worthy of the kindness they didn't deserve. And sometimes the most powerful thing you could do with your success wasn't to flaunt it, but to use it to create opportunities for growth, understanding, and redemption. Even when the person who needed those opportunities was the same person who had tried to steal from you while you were unconscious in surgery. Family was complicated, but it was still family.